Today I'm going to teach you how to build your very own real-time chat application using React.js and Socket.io. And later on in this tutorial, I'm going to teach you how to connect your chat application to a very popular and simple to use database. And eventually, we're going to learn how to deploy our application on Amazon's EC2 server. How cool is that? So basically, I'm going to teach you how to create a very simple full stack application from start to finish. And literally from start to finish. Because by the end of this tutorial, you would have learned not only how to create, but how to deploy your application so that it's accessible by your family and your friends, and even for recruiters to see. If you're a beginner to programming, this is the most perfect project to put into your application, because it essentially shows the recruiter that you have basic understanding of how React works, and you have understanding of backend and frontend and how they correlate with each other, and it shows that you have basic understanding of database concepts. And again, it shows that you have complete and thorough understanding how to deploy your application. So this is a more of a 5-in-1 video. It shows your recruiter that you are skillful in beginning a project and completing a project. Because one of the most mistakes that many beginners make is starting a project and not completing a project. But with this project on your portfolio, recruiters will be very much impressed. Before we begin with our project, let's try and see the end results of what we are trying to achieve so that we get a better understanding of how to tackle this project. What's in front of your screen is the chat application that we are trying to build. So this is practically our landing page. Before we get into our application, we need first to log in. Our chat application, we're going to call it Super Chat because it has superpowers. So as you can see, if we log in, let's try to put our name over here. Let's just say coding. And then we press log in. And there's already an existing chat in there that I had created prior to this. So as you can see, the UI of our project mimics one of the most popular instant messaging apps known as WhatsApp. So let's try and work with this and see how it works. If we were to type a message here and we were to say, hello coders, and we enter, there goes our message, and it automatically creates a profile picture for us because we don't want it to be a too complicated project. We just want to make a simple chat application. So an automatic profile picture is created, and you can see that the UI respect to the receiver is different with the UI with respect to the sender of the message. And if we were to refresh this page, you will notice that the message stays in there because our application is actually connected to a database that we're going to learn about later on in this project. So you can essentially send a message and have your message appear on your screen. And if we were to open another browser and we were to log in with a different name, over here we have our Firefox browser, and I'm going to log in with a different name, and I'm just going to call it 101. And if I were to log in, you can see that the message that we had on the other browsers is appearing over here. And if we were to type a message over here and we were to say, yeah, hello everybody, Socket.io is going to help in the sense that that message is going to automatically appear on the other side instantly. So you can see that this is the message that we typed on our other browser and is now automatically appearing on this Chrome browser. So this is because of Socket.io, and we're going to learn how Socket.io achieves this type of technology, and we're actually going to use Socket.io in this project. Alright, that's enough talking. Let's get into our project and let's actually build something. But before we get into the code, let me remind you to subscribe to this channel. Make sure that you click the subscribe button. If you're enjoying this video, or if you've enjoyed the video, please subscribe and like the video. If you have any questions, and if you have any type of comment whatsoever, make sure you leave your opinions in the comment section, whether good or bad. I appreciate any type of opinion to help me improve and help me serve you much better. Let's get into our code. Now I've already taken the privilege to create a folder, and I've named it Chat App. And inside of Chat App, I've created two folders, Client and Server. Inside of Client, I've already created the React boilerplate code. And inside of server, we've not done anything yet, and this is the one that I want to do with you. So we're going to start with setting up our server first before we can get into our client side, the client side of our application. What you need to do is open up your terminal and navigate yourself to the server folder that we've just created, and just say npm init yes. This is going to create a Node.js application for us. And now we go back to our application, and you can see we already have a package.json inside of there. And what we need to do is to install a couple of packages inside of there. We're first going to install Express, and then we're going to install socket.io, and then we're going to install Course, because Course is going to allow us to communicate through the two servers through front end. Course is going to allow us to allow our front end to communicate seamlessly with our back end. And after that, we're done. We press enter, and we allow these applications to install. After these applications have installed, we go back to our server and we just create a simple JavaScript file. We call it app.js. Inside of there, we're going to create our server, and we're just going to say express is equals to require express like this, and we're going to say const app is equals to express like that. I'm just going to say app.listen to port 500. And if you're listening to that port, make sure you tell us. I'm just going to say console.log listening to port 5000 like that. And if we were to run our server using nodemon, and you will notice that, oh, it's saying 5000 is already in use. So I'm just going to use a different one. I'm going to use maybe 5001. Cancel that. And if we go back to our terminal, you can see that it says over here, listening to port 5001. But now we need to incorporate socket.io into our server. In order to do that, we're going to come here, we're going to just say const http is equals to require http like that. I'm going to say const server equals to require socket.io dot server like that. So we're going to actually recreate our server with socket.io, and then we've already done app.express, so that's fine. App is equals to express, and then what we're going to do is we're going to say const server equals to http.create server, and put it in like this. Just write it properly over here. And I'm going to say const io is equals to new server over here. And inside of here, we're going to use our course now to make sure that this server is able to accept requests from any type of website or any type of domain. So we're going to just do that, and that is done. And after we're done doing that, now remember, we're not using app now, so we're using server. So we come over here, and instead of app, we say server.listen like that. Server.listen should be fine. Go back to our terminal, just ensure everything is fine. You can see there's no breaking change. Alright, and just like that, we've managed to incorporate or create our server using socket.io. So now socket.io is set up. What we need to do now is to make sure that socket.io is connected. So every time socket.io is connected to, we need to have a particular respond. So we say io.on, and so we're going to say whenever the socket is being connected, on connection, this is what I need you to do. So if it's connected to, we're just going to say console.log we are connected like this. So whenever our front end connects to our socket server, then this is going to be the console that is going to be printed. And if it is disconnected, the same is going to happen. So we're going to just say socket.disconnect. We're going to say console.log disconnected like that. All right. So we're done implementing the connection and the disconnected. What we need to implement now is a way for us to pass around our chat information. Remember, when somebody chats, when somebody puts in a text and they press the submit button, that chat needs to go to somebody else. It needs to go around all the browsers that are connected to the server. And in order to do that, we need to say socket.on. We're going to give it a name and we're going to call it chat. So our socket is going to listen to any chat form of communication. And we're going to take whatever information that is associated with that connection. And we're going to say io.emit chat. So let me try and explain this again, right? So whenever somebody wants to communicate, wants to send a chat, that chat is going to be received by the socket, and that chat is going to be emitted. And what emit does is that it communicates that chat information to other channels that are connected to the server. So every server is going to receive whatever chat that you're going to put forward. So that's what is happening over here. And I believe just like that, we've managed to implement all that we managed to implement. Let's just check out our terminal. We've managed to implement all that we need to implement in our server. So not that complicated. It's just as simple as it is. We can make it more complicated, but I don't want to make it complicated for you for now. There are many ways we can improve on this server side, but for now, this is the basic way that we're going to do it. So now what we're going to do is that we're going to move on to the front end aspect of our application. Navigate to your terminal and go to your terminal and then navigate to the client side of your application. So what we're going to do is that we're going to install a couple of packages that we're going to need for our front end. The first package that we're going to install is Lodash, and then we're going to install socket.io-client, and then we're going to install ent-design, and I think that's about it. And then we're going to allow those packages to install. And then after we've done that, we're going to simply start our application, npm run start, like this. Now, while our application is starting, we go to our project and close over this backend side because we're done with it. And we go to our client side. And what we're going to do is that we're going to create a couple of components inside of our client side. So we're just going to create, first of all, a folder. We're going to call it components inside of there, and we're going to have a couple of components, and this is going to be chatbox.js like this, and then we're going to create chat container.js, and then we're going to create input text, and then we're going to have user.js. This is where we're going to be logging in. I should probably call it login, but I think it's fine. Yeah, let's just call it user login. I'll rename that. Fine. And now we're going to go to our chat container, and we're just going to say RFC like that. Everywhere we go, we're going to just say RFC, create that boilerplate code like that. That should suffice. Okay, that's fantastic. Now what we need to get started with is maybe our user login page, because I feel like that is much more simpler than doing anything else. Or not, maybe I think we should get started with our chat box. So our chat box essentially is the style of our chats, because all the chats are different. Let me just show you a bit. You can see that over here it's green and it's on the other side, and over here it's white and it's on the other side. So we need to have the ability to actually differentiate between the receiver and the sender of the message. So that is why we're starting over there. And we have this input part as well, which is also important. It's very necessary to be implemented as well. We're going to do it as well, but let's go ahead and just start with the chat box. And inside of our chat box, what we're going to do is that we're going to have chat receiver and we're going to have chat sender. So that's what we're going to have. So okay, so we're going to have over here chat box receiver like that, and I'm just going to copy this to the bottom as well so that I can have chat box sender as well. So our chat box is going to have, let's go back and see, there's going to be an avatar over here, and there's going to be this green rectangular thing over here, and then we have like the username of the person who's logged in, and we have the message over here. So they're a bit of like, there are 3 or 4 components here. Okay, there's the avatar, there is this green box over here, square or rectangle, that's 2, and then we have the text message, that's 3, and then we have the username, that's 4. So we have 4 components inside of that. So we're going to try and encapsulate all that information inside of that. So we're going to first start with the receiving end of things. I think the div over here is fine, but what we're going to do is that we're going to import avatar and image from end design. So avatar, the avatar element and the image element from end design. That's precisely why we installed end design. And D like that. Cool. And then after we're done, we come over here and we give our chat box a little bit of styling. I'm going to just say style, and then I'm going to say display flex like that. And then what else am I going to do? I'm just going to say justify content. Remember that our chat application is on our box, actually our chat box, our receiving chat box is actually on the right, is it left or on the left side of our screen? So justify content, we're going to say flex start to emulate that. So we're going to just say flex start like that. And I'm going to make sure everything is in a row, so we're going to just say flex direction is going to be row like that. So that's cool, that's fine. And then after we're done doing that, we're going to put in our avatar now. I'm going to just say avatar. And we want our avatar to actually be an image. This is a self-closing tag element. We're going to give it a size of maybe 50. I wonder why my end design is not responding. Let me just go to my package.json to just check if that end design. So it was not installed. We were supposed to say end D instead of, but we said end. So we're going to go back to our terminal and actually do that properly. So we're going to just say no for now and actually install end D. Okay, so while that is installing, I think it's finished installing by now. So we can just check by just doing this. And D, there it is. That's fine now. We can start our application and do our avatar. So we're going to give it a size of 50. And we're going to say src is equals to image. Like this. I'm going to say src. We're going to give it an avatar. Actually, our avatar is actually going to be a prop. So we're going to come over here and we're going to just say avatar. Like that. Avatar. And we're going to give it a bit of styling, our image. I'm going to just say object fit, cover. I'm going to say width. We're going to give it a width of 45 and a height of 45 as well. We want the border radius, we want it to be a circular avatar, so we're going to give it a border radius, border radius of 100% like that. And we're going to give it a, and we're going to say preview. We don't want any previews, so we're going to just say preview false. Like that. Yeah, and then so we've managed to do the avatar aspect of our chat box. Now what we need to do actually now is we need to do the heading and the actual message. So we're going to wrap all those inside of a p tag. Oh, what did I press? Okay. We're going to wrap everything inside of a p tag. So I'm going to make a p tag like this, and inside of here we're going to create that. The username is going to be inside of a strong tag, so maybe the username will also be a prop, and that prop we're going to call it user, and we also want the message to be a prop. Oh, I seem to have gotten rid of avatar, so we have a user and message. So inside of here I'm going to just say user, and then I want to have like a sort of line break. so that after that I can put in my message. I'm going to have my message inside of there. So I'm going to style my p tag, but first I'm going to style my strong tag. I'm going to give it a styling of font size. I'm going to increase the font size actually to 13. Should be fine. And then I'm going to come to my p tag and I'm going to style it as well. I'm going to give it a padding of 10 and a background color of, let me just, what's my background color over here? There's my background color. And then I'm also going to give it a border radius, because you could see over here that it was a little bit round. The edges were much more smoother. So we need to have a certain type of border radius over there. So we can do border radius. Our border radius is going to be 10. And our max width is going to be 60% of your screen. So just going to do that. Alright, and just like that, we've managed to do our chat box receiver. So I'm going to test it. I'm going to put it inside of our app.js. I'm going to get rid of everything inside of here. Let's see if we've managed to actually, okay, so we need to say yes over here. So I'm going to just get rid of everything that is inside of here. Get rid of this as well. Alright. And after getting rid of everything, this then becomes our application. It's absolutely blank inside of there. So now it means we can add our receiver, but let me just put an H1 for good measure. I'm just going to say super chat like that. And I'm hoping that's going to reflect in our browser so you can see it's already there. So going back to our application, we're going to use chat receiver like that. Remember, it has a couple of props. So one of the first props is that it has to be a user. So this user is going to be coding. So it's going to be Cody, let's say Cody. So, and then after that we have, what do we have? An avatar. So for random images, I'm going to use lorem pixum.photos, sorry. Pixum.photos, they have got links to like 1,000 random photos. So I'm just going to get one of them in here. I'm going to be using this one throughout our application. So I'm just going to put it inside of there. I don't need curly brackets for this. Let's see, what else do we need? Let's go back to our chat box receiver. We need the message. So the message is going to be hello world. So I'm going to just say hello world like that. And yeah, that should do. Let's go back to our application. Remember, that is the receiver, so we expect it to be greenish. So let's go back to our application. We have a couple of errors in there, surprisingly. So let's try and see what could be the problem over here. Okay, it says only one default export is allowed per module, so I think I know what the problem is. So let's go back to our chat box. So instead of having 2 default, we can have only 1 default. So let me get rid of this one. And then go back to our application. Hopefully we don't have any errors, but for some reason we're not seeing our chat box receiver. Okay, there it is. So maybe let's try to save this a couple of times and go back to our browser. And there it is. So you can see our profile picture is exactly how we wanted it to be. So now I want this entire thing over here to be in a certain color so that I can build the chat box sender, because remember, our chat box sender is going to be white, so it needs to show against this background. So I'm going to give this background a certain color. So I'm going to come back to my app.js. So I'm going to be precisely focused on this div right here. So I'm just going to say style, and I'm going to just say background color, and we're going to give it a background color of ECE5DD, and then we're going to give it a height of 100 VH like this. And if we go back to our browser, so you can see that our browser has a certain type of background. So that's good, that's fantastic. Don't worry about this white at the very top. as yet. We're going to handle that, but now we're going to build the same thing, but this time around it's a sender, not a receiver. Alright, so we go to our chat box, and I feel like we should just like copy everything in here that we did with our chat box receiver and just copy it in there. Remember to get rid of that default, otherwise you're going to get that error that we ran into, and change the name of the component from receiver to sender, like this. So a couple of things we're going to do in here, well, not actually a couple of things, it's just a few specific things that we're going to do. The first thing, of course, that we're going to do is just change the color of the chat box sender, and what we're going to do is that we're going to make it white, like that. And instead of flexbox start, we're going to say flexbox end, because this is on the right side of our screen. And yeah, I think that's about it. Nothing too peculiar regarding that. So they're both the same. It's just the color and the positioning of the chat box. So let's go back to our project. Actually, let's go to our app.js and actually test out this chat box sender. So I'm just gonna come over here. I'm gonna say chat box sender, like that, and it's gonna automatically. And I'm just gonna say here, I'm gonna say coder. I'm gonna say avatar, and I'm gonna use pretty much the same avatar, or I can just pick a different one and just go to lorem pixum and just maybe take this one over here. Let's just go to a different, more specific one. This one. It's a picture of a dog. It's a very cute dog, and I'm gonna put it as a string over here, and I'm gonna say message. It's gonna be, hi, how are you doing? How are you doing? So, and then that's I think about it. And we go back to our application and see how that works, and you can see that our receiver and this over here is the sender of the message. So that works, that's fine. And what we need to do now is to implement the input text. So I'm going to come over here to the input text, and what I'm going to do is that I'm going to give it a few styling. There's a few stylings that I want to implement for this. So I'm just going to copy and paste them because they are a lot, and you already know about CSS, and if you don't, then maybe take a 15 minutes or 10 minutes tutorial on React inline styling. So these are the styles that I've put in over here, nothing too complicated. So inside of our input text, we're going to have eventually, let's go back to our end product application so that we can see what is involved in creating our input text. So you can see that you have this input box that you see over here, and then you have this button over here. So this is going to be a text area because you can see that it is expandable. Unlike a regular text box, this one is actually expandable. So it's actually called a text area, and then we have a button. So there are essentially about two components that are involved in this React component that we're going to implement. So, and then we have the container of the entire thing, the container which includes the text box, the text area, and the button as well. So you can see that they are spaced out, I think, evenly. Yeah, I think they're spaced out evenly. And this is a flex box, and it's spaced out evenly. So now we've actually included that styling over here in the styling that we just copied and pasted. So yeah, that's good. So now we come over to the div, and we say style, styles dot text container, like this, and then we're going to have a text area like that. I'm going to have style. I'm going to have style. We have the styling for the text area, so we're just going to say styles dot text area. I'm going to have rows is equals to 6, and then we're going to have placeholder, and inside of there we're just going to say write something dot dot dot, and we're going to have a value. So our value, in order to create a value, first what we need is we need a state. So the state is going to capture the message that is being typed inside of the input box. So that message, we're going to just say message, and we're going to say set message, like that. So every time we type in something, it's going to be stored inside of our state. So we're going to say use state, and for now it's going to be empty, it's not going to have anything. So the value is going to be message. And because we have that already, we're going to have an on change, so that every time we type in something, it's going to be stored in that state. So it's going to be set message e.target.value like this. And then we're going to have a button. And inside of here, we're going to have on click. We're going to create a function called add message. Add a message like this. We're going to create it, and we're going to give this button a style of styles.button. And that should suffice. That's good enough. And now what we're going to do is that we're going to implement that add a message function that we have on our on-click button. So we're just going to say function add a message like that. And the first thing that we're going to do, of course, is that immediately after we add a message, we want to make sure that we clear the text box area. So we're just going to we're going to set nothing like that. And then we're going to have another method, and we're going to call it add a message. Add message. We're going to implement it somewhere else. So this is the method that is going to be responsible for transmitting our message to other browsers inside of the same channel. So we're going to implement it somewhere else, but we're going to need to implement it here as well. We're going to need to create it, or call it here rather, sorry. We're going to call this function over here, and it takes a simple input, which is message, the message object, like that, and we're done. Cool. So, and now after we're done doing that, so what I do want to do is that I want to put it on my app.js, but I'm worried because I've not implemented that add a message feature. So I'm going to just do it, input text. So I'm going to give it like a add message. So this is going to be a function that just simply adds a message. And oh wait, it's a function that simply adds a message. Yeah, just console logs. It takes in a message and just console logs the message for now. Message dot message like this. Let's see if this works. So yeah, so we forgot to put enter inside of this button, so that's what we're going to do now. We're going to just go to our project, our input text, and we're just going to say inside of here, we're just going to say text. We're going to say enter, sorry. We're going to say enter. If we go back to our project, there's our enter thingy. So yeah, no, I just wanted you to see that. We're going to now implement our chat container, because I think we're done with this. So our chat container is going to just containerize everything that is inside of here. So our chat container is probably the main component, it's the parent component of everything else that we've been doing. So what we're going to do is that we're going to take everything that is inside of our app.js, actually, and we're going to put it inside of chat container. So there are a couple of things that need to be done inside of chat container, and that's going to allow us to essentially have the ability to do whatever we want inside of chat container. But actually, you know what? I think before we implement chat container, let's actually implement the user login, because that's also important. So let's try to implement the user login first before we can implement the chat container. So we're going to go inside of here. There are a couple of stylings also that are associated with the user login component, but especially the button. We're more concerned with the button. So I'm going to copy and paste this styling over here. And the first thing that I'm going to do is that I'm going to create a state. I'm going to say const user set a user like that. And I'm going to say use state, and that will do. And then I'm going to create a function that allows us to set a user. So I'm going to say handle set user. So whenever a user logs in, what we want to do is that we want to store the name of that user into our local storage. So we're just going to say set item. I'm going to name this user, name the item user, and we're going to just simply store the user like that. We can validate this to make sure that the user is not empty, but I don't want to get too much into that because validation is a whole thing. And so I'm going to just say set user like that. And this is going to be user. And the other thing that we want to do is that we want to give this user a particular avatar. We're going to store that avatar inside of our local storage. We're going to use Pixum as well, pixum.photos. So Pixum gives us the ability to access random photos. And so you're going to use a function called dash.random from Lodash in order to access that. So I'm going to just import Lodash at the very top. So this gives us the ability to access random numbers from our Pixum, random photos, sorry, from our pixum.photos website. So that's cool, that's nice. All right. And then the next thing that we need to do now is to implement our user.login, but I'm just going to show you how it looks so that you can have a realistic expectation of how everything should look. We have this title over here, we have this icon that you see over here, and then we have this text box that you see. It's not a text area compared to if we were to compare it to the last text area that we performed, and we have a button over here, a greenish button. So looking at this, we have this icon over here, and then we have this would be supposedly an h1 tag, we have an input tag, and then we have button tag that you see over here. Alright, so let's get started. The first thing, of course, that we're going to do is that we're going to implement an h1 tag, and inside of our h1 tag, we're going to have an icon that we're going to get from EndDesign. So this icon is called comment outlined. So that is the icon that we're going to import from EndDesign. So we're going to import it at the very top over here. That's about it. And then after we're done doing that, what we need to do is to implement the input box. So the input is a simple text input that we have already, and we're going to give it a value of user, and we're going to implement an onChange button that is going to allow us to change that state every time we type something. We're going to have a placeholder called write random name, and we also have our styling over here as well. So that's done, and after we're done doing that, we're going to implement our button. This is just simply the same as the previous so this is just the same as the previous input text that we just created, so that's why I'm rushing through it, because I assume that you already know. The only concept that we didn't have previously was this local storage item that we didn't have previously. So I think that is fine. Remember to validate this if you wish to validate it, because it's important. In fact, you know what? I think we should validate it. We're going to just say, we're going to create a guard if statement. So if user is empty, we're just going to return so that we don't allow anything empty to pass through. All right, so I think that's about it. We don't need to implement anything else, but except we're going to have to set user, because like this is set a user. There's another function that we're going to create. It's called set user, because we're actually going to use this somewhere else. Oh, sorry, this is supposed to be set user. Like this, and it's going to take in our user. So this is going to be set user. I'm wondering if the set user is important, but it might not be important, but we'll see as we implement the chat application. So now we move on to the all-important part, but of course I'm guessing you might want to see the user login, but you'll see it in a moment while we're still implementing the chat container. Right, so let's go to our chat container now, and let's create our chat container over here. So of course the first thing that we need to do is that we need to handle the socket.io side of things. We need to reference our server, and in order to do that we need to import a socket.io client at the very top. So we're going to just import socket.io. At the very top like this, and we also want to declare or connect it to that socket.io server that we created in the very beginning of this. So obviously that is going to be, where is our server running? We're going to go and see, that's 5001, that's the port. So we're just going to say http:/localhost, and we're just going to say 5001 like this. Right, that should suffice. And then after we're done, we're going to create a state where we're going to store all of our chats. So we're just going to say chat set chats is equals to use state, like that. And for now it's not going to have anything inside. And then we're going to have the user state. This is where we get our set user. This is which we used in our user login. And then for now, the use state is going to contain that item that is inside of our local storage. Remember, we named it user. And don't forget, we also have our avatar. So we're just going to say use set avatar. And we're going to just say use state. And we're also going to do the same with our avatar. We're going to say local storage.get item, and we're going to just say avatar like this. And yeah, I think that's about it. What we need to do now is to create a use effect that is going to allow us to effectively connect to our socket. So in order to connect to our socket, we just need to say socket.io.on chat. So whenever we get an event, a socket event called chat, this is what we need to do. Is essentially what we're saying. So we're going to receive a couple of things called set chats, sender chats. And what we need to do is that we need to set chats. Alright, so let me explain what happens in here, because I think that was a little bit fuzzy, right? So we're going to, whenever we receive an event that is known as chat, that event is going to give us a group of chats. It's going to give us a list of all the chats contained inside of a socket channel or socket, or inside of a socket. So now we're going to take those chats and initialize them to the chat state, and they're going to be displayed inside of our browser. So that is why we're saying set chat. This is us receiving an event that is known as set chat. So it's going to just tell you, hey, some people just talked, so let me give you the conversation that they were just talking about. So that's essentially what it does. And yeah, that's basically about it. And this is going to be a method that is going to be continually running, so it's not going to be like just running for a moment. It's going to be continually running. And then we're going to have another method that we're going to call send chat to socket. So what this is simply going to do is going to emit the chat that we had. So it's going to be socket.io.emit, and it's going to put in our chat over here like that. So this is us actually sending the content of our conversation to whoever is connected to the socket. So it's going to send chat to socket. So that's how we implement that, and it's as simple as that. And then after we're done, we're going to create another function that we're going to call add message. So this add message is just simply going to add a chat into our existing chat. So when we receive a chat, it's going to just take that chat and it's going to put it inside of our chat stack. So we're going to create a function, and it's called add message. Remember, this is the same function that was used as a prop inside of, I want to believe, the input text component. So we're going to now create our chat, and inside of our chat, so we're just going to import everything, and we're going to put the user, I'm going to put the avatar as well. So our chat consists of the message, and it consists of the user, which is the sender of the message, and it consists of the avatar. And so what we're going to do with that chat is that we're just simply going to say set chats, and we're going to say everything that is inside of chats, combine that with the new chat, and you have a fresh and a new chat that has been updated. And obviously, we're not done with that. We need to send that chat to the socket. So this is the function that is going to essentially be called every time a message is being entered or a message is being added to our chat application. First, we need to create that chat as an object, and then after that, that chat needs to be added to the chat array, which is an array that consists of every single conversation inside of a holistic chat. And then after that, that chat is going to be sent to the socket so that other people could know about the chat or the message in real time. So now we need to connect this message somewhere. And remember, we said that we were using it as a prop on the input text button. But we need to implement that because we haven't really implemented that. So we need to come over here, and what we need to say is that if a user is already available, so that means if there's already a user, then I need you to show this type of screen or show this component. But if there is no user, then I need you to show the user login. So this is sort of like a validation component that essentially tells us, that essentially says that, hey, listen, if there's no user, then if the user has not logged in yet, then show them the login page. If they've logged in, then show them the chats. So that's essentially what that is all about. So remember, it receives a prop known as setUser. Okay, and then inside of here, what we need to do is that first of all, we need to just separate this so that we can actually see what is what. Let me try to separate them. Okay. So the first thing that of course we need to implement is the header. And let's go back to the header and see what is contained inside of the header. If we were to log in over here, you can see that at the heading you have the username and then you have this log out button. So those are the type of things that we need to implement at the very top. So we need to essentially wrap those things inside of a div and then present them in our code. So that's exactly what we're going to do. At the very top over here, we're going to have our username, and then we're going to have our logout button. So we need to, our logout button actually has a function called logout button that is triggered every time that logout is being pressed. So we need to implement that button. So what it simply does is that once a person chooses to log out of our application, it needs to delete all the avatars, all of the items inside of our local storage, and it needs to set the user as nothing. So it needs to revert our user state to its default state. So that's essentially what it does. So every time somebody logs in, it just simply removes that item from the it removes their username from the local storage, and it also removes their avatar from the local storage as well. So, and then after we're done, we now need to implement our chats. Our chats need to be implemented separately. So that's why I'm gonna have like a separate function for that. And I'm gonna call this function order chats. So order chat is sort of like a chat list. I could call it chat list. Yeah, I'm going to just say chat list like this. And inside of this chat list, we're just going to return chats.map like this. Chat index. If chat.user is equals to user, then we're going to return chat box receiver. I'm going to have a key over here. It's going to be index. Remember, we have a message prop inside of that. So the message prop is going to be chat.message inside of there. And remember, our chat box sender also has another prop known as avatar. So obviously our chat has an avatar, so we just need to say chat.avatar like this. And we're done with our chat box receiver. So if it's not, then what we need to do is we need to return chat box sender like this, and just like that. And this is practically going to be the same thing, so I'm just going to copy this. So what we're essentially saying with our if statement is that if the user is available, because our chats have a username that are associated, because our chat is an object. So inside of this object, there's a field called user, so it identifies where the chat is coming from. So our if statement essentially says that if the local user state is the same as the state from the chat, then that means that chat is a local chat and it is coming from the sender. But if it is not coming from the sender, then that means it's coming from the receiver. And that is why we implement all those components with respect to the name of the user or the username of that chat. All right, cool. So I think that's it. Actually, I think we have it sideways. This is supposed to be chatbox sender, and then this one over here is supposed to be chatbox receiver, like that. So if the chat user is the same as the local user, then the chatbox should emulate the component from the chatbox sender, and that's that. And then we're done. And now we come over here and we implement chats list. We need a div because it's not going to exist alone. Oh, actually, no, we don't need to do that. We just need to implement it inside of here. So we're going to have chat list like this. And inside of our chat list, remember, we also have that input text component at the very bottom of our screen. So we need to put it here at the very bottom. And I believe just like that, we would have managed to implement our chat container successfully. It's rather long, and so I wouldn't mind if you were to break all these functions into individual components or just make them much more simplistic, but I feel like this is much more simpler. So now what we're going to do is that we're going to go to our app.js, and instead of having all of these, we're going to put in chat container like that. And we're going to get rid of these inputs because they're no longer in use. Yeah. And then we're going to go to our browser and see if everything works as it should. All right, so we're going to refresh this. Okay, so we're waiting for it to compile. So it says input text is not defined. All right, so we need to make sure that we import input text at the very top of our application. So let's go back and go to chat container. If we can just type it down here, and that's going to be automatically imported. Get rid of it and go back to our super chat. All right, so it's a bit of a breaking change that we're seeing over here. Sorry, our code is breaking, so let's try to fix it. I think what we forgot to do is to put in some curly brackets over here. So we're just going to do that. All right, and now everything is cool, but this is supposed to be at the very center, so let's fix that as well. In order to fix that, we're going to go to our user login. And what we're going to do is that we are just going to come over here and use Flexbox. And you know what? Let me just wrap the input and button in a div. And then I'm going to use Flexbox to center those items individually. Take it here and put it in there. And after we're done doing that, we're going to use styling to justify that content towards the center. And if we go now, you can see that our chat works exactly as it should. If we were to type in our name over here, let's just say coder, and we press login, you can see that now we're able to log into our chat. So now what I want us to do, you can see that our app is running on port 3001, and we're going to go to a different browser, and we're going to try to log in there as well and try to communicate with ourselves. So this one is going to be super coder like this, and we're going to log in. So what we're expecting to see is that exchange of information between these two browsers. So I'm going to say from supercoder, hello coder, and I'm going to press enter. You can see, but then our avatar is not showing as it should. So let's see if it shows on the other side. hello there. Okay, so it's not showing as it should. There's a bit of a problem with the socket.io and the avatar as well, so we're gonna have to fix that. So I think that the problem here is that our socket is not our front end is not connecting to our server, and we need to find a way to actually fix that, because if you remember, what we implemented in our server is that every single time, let me just go there, is that every single time we connect to the socket, then it should automatically print this console. So therein lies our problem, is that we really cannot connect to the server now, because we would see these console logs on the screen. So let's try and run the server once more. So it's running on port 5001. Let's make sure that our container is also running on port 5001. Our chat application is also running on chat 5001. So you could see there's one of our problem, is that we didn't write the localhost URL correctly. So it's supposed to be 5001. And if we go back to the terminal, you can see that now it's connected. So it's connecting appropriately. And so that is fine. So that essentially means that we are now connected to the socket. But now let's figure out what could be the problem with our avatars, because they're not connecting the way that they're supposed to connect. And so I'm going to try and figure out what that problem is. So this avatar. Okay, so we need to, our title is not showing up, our username is not showing up, I think because over here we forgot to set the user prop. And I'm going to do that. I'm going to say, actually, I'm going to just say chat.user like this. I'm also going to do the same over here. I'm going to say user chat.user like that. And that should suffice. Chat.user like that. And if we go back to application, we log in over here using Coda, and then we log on the other browser with 101. We log in. Oh, there's already an existing chat, but we can just like refresh this so that we can just like get rid of that and start on a clean slate. So we have these two. We're going to just start over here. I'm going to just say hello, this is Coda. I'm going to press enter, and you can see there's our sender chat. I think we may have to do like padding over this so that it shows properly. And you can see that by the magic of socket.io, our chat is appearing on the other side. Say, oh hello, this is 101. And you can see that you can see the different avatars on each side. And if we go to the other side, we will see our text message over here. And I just want to make a padding over this entire container, so that I'm going to do it here. I'm going to give it a total padding of maybe 10 pixels. And let's see how that works out. It should be fine. That's good. So you can see now that our chat works exactly how we want it to work. So we've managed to implement our chat using React.js and socket.io, and it works appropriately during this time. So now what we need to do is that we need to attach a memory, we need to attach a database to this project, and I'm going to do that in the next video. So this will be a three-part series or three-part tutorial. In the next video, I'm going to teach you how to use Firebase's Firestore and actually attach it to this application. It's not going to be too long. I'm going to teach you how to attach it so that this application doesn't go away. And then in the next video, I'm going to show you how to actually deploy this application. So stay tuned for all those types of videos. Once again, thank you so much for watching. Make sure that you subscribe to this channel, and make sure that you like this video as well. And if you've enjoyed the video, it doesn't hurt to comment in the comment section to say I enjoyed the video, and actually subscribe, which is the most important thing. So in the next video, I am going to be teaching you how to attach our Firestore to this chat application. It's going to be a very simple and easy episode, so stay tuned for that. Other than that, thank you for watching. I will see you next time on Coding 101. I will see you on part 2 of